Picture this. The palace gates close at dusk, but something inside doesn't quite add up. Reports emerge of hushed conversations in royal corridors, unexplained absences from public engagements, and a normally radiant Duchess of Cambridge walking those gilded hallways with a cautious, almost guarded step. What really happened to Kate Middleton? You wonder as tabloid theories swirl, from secret health scares to palace power plays. You need to hear this, because the truth behind the headlines is more compelling than any rumor, and understanding it reveals not just one woman's journey, but the shifting face of modern monarchy. It all began late last winter, when Kate canceled a high-profile charity gala with barely 24 hours' notice. Official statement: family reasons. Social media erupted. Could it be another bout of severe morning sickness? Was she expecting baby number 4? Or perhaps she'd fallen ill herself? Yet insiders whispered something more unsettling: a fierce disagreement with palace aides over a speech draft that she refused to deliver. Sources claimed Kate objected to language she deemed too deferential, insisting on a more authentic voice that reflected her own life experiences. That clash set off a ripple effect. Aides who once deferred to her every wish suddenly bristled, and the usually seamless choreography of royal events felt noticeably off balance. Fast forward 2 weeks, and Kate reemerged, but not at the gala. Instead, she flew to Belfast for a mental health summit, delivering a heartfelt address that crackled with unexpected vulnerability. Gone was the poised, rehearsed cadence. In its place was raw honesty. She spoke of quiet struggles behind palace doors, of pressures to conform to an image that sometimes felt like a gilded cage. Her tone struck a chord. Tears glistened at the edge of her eyes as she described nights spent pacing a nursery she once decorated for her firstborn, grappling with anxiety that made sleep impossible. The speech made global headlines. Some praised her courage. Others whispered that such candor was unbecoming of a royal. But for millions tuning in, it was a revelation, a glimpse of the woman behind the title. Still, questions piled up. Why hadn't she confided in her husband, Prince William? Why bypass palace protocols to speak so openly? And if mental health was the real crisis, why keep it secret for so long? To answer those questions, we have to rewind further, back to the night after her third child's christening, when Kate was seen slipping out of the palace alone, heading to a private residence in West London. Security footage, later leaked to the press, showed her pausing at a street lamp, phone in hand, her usually bright expression replaced by a pensive frown. Some say she met with a close friend. Others claim it was a trusted therapist. Whatever took place behind those heavy mahogany doors solidified her determination. She would no longer let the institution dictate her narrative. Within days, William and Kate issued a joint statement about their marital challenges, something the couple had never publicly acknowledged. The language was cautious, but the subtext was clear. The strain of public life had taken its toll on their relationship. Rumors swirled of long silences between them at official events, of arguments over parenting styles, even of William's frustration at Kate's sudden assertiveness. Yet beneath the surface tension lay a deeper truth. Kate was stepping into her own, refusing to remain a prop in a centuries-old drama. She had observed Meghan Markle's departure from royal duties and seen the price of unspoken resentment. Determined to break that cycle, she chose transparency over tradition, a gamble that rattled the palace. The next turning point arrived in spring, when Kate unveiled her new flagship initiative, Mindful Families, a nationwide program offering free counseling resources to parents. Launch events once orchestrated down to the last ribbon cutting were replaced by informal coffee mornings in community centers. Kate wore jeans instead of tailored suits, sat cross-legged with participants, and let conversations flow unedited. Journalists who covered these sessions described scenes more typical of grassroots activists than of royal engagements. Mothers wept as they shared postpartum struggles. Fathers confessed feelings of hopelessness, and Kate listened intently, notebook in hand, jotting down every story. That genuine connection elevated her status from ceremonial figurehead to empathetic advocate, and prompted palace officials to scramble, uncertain how to integrate this unorthodox approach into the traditional royal playbook. Meanwhile, whispers about a more clandestine chapter began to surface. A well-placed palace insider hinted that during her downtime, Kate had retreated to the Cotswolds, not for leisure, but for intensive therapy at a discreet wellness retreat. Attendees spoke of private sessions in sunlit cottages, group workshops on authentic leadership, and one-on-one coaching with experts in resilience. It was rumored that the Duchess emerged from this crucible empowered, armed with new strategies to balance her roles as mother, wife, and public figure. Some advisors worried she'd become too independent, straining the monarchy's carefully managed image. Others celebrated her reinvention, seeing it as a lifeline for a royal house in desperate need of renewal. Then, as summer approached, an episode framed everything in stark contrast. Kate was sidelined once more, this time due to an undisclosed wrist injury. Initially, the palace described it as a minor accident during a family outing. But eagle-eyed royal watchers noted inconsistencies. The Duchess was spotted wearing a protective brace far sturdier than necessary, and photographers captured her wincing as she did simple tasks. The palace swiftly announced she'd undergone outpatient surgery and would remain off-camera for several weeks. Critics accused her of orchestrating another media stunt. Supporters believed she genuinely needed time to recover. Yet a deeper undercurrent emerged. The injury symbolized the larger tension between duty and self-care. Kate's broken wrist became a metaphor for a fractured system struggling to support those it demands most. By the time autumn arrived, Kate's absence from the Trooping the Color parade fueled rumors of a permanent retreat from public life. Social media brimmed with speculation. Had she chosen exile over confrontation? Was William ready to assume his own leadership without her by his side? Palace officials issued reassuring statements about her ongoing recovery and renewed focus on upcoming projects. But behind closed doors, a quiet revolution was taking shape. Kate's circle of advisors expanded to include mental health experts and nonprofit leaders, shifting power away from long-entrenched courtiers. She embarked on a low-key tour of rural schools, bypassing press coverage, letting local news outlets document her visits. Each stop underscored her commitment to authenticity over spectacle and underscored the palace's evolving dynamic. The Duchess now held equal sway in shaping the monarchy's future. As the leaves turned golden, rumors gave way to reality. Kate reappeared at a gala, looking healthier, more confident, and dressed in a coat whose bold color broke with royal protocol. She accepted the award for outstanding public service with a speech that closed this chapter in her personal saga. I've learned that leadership isn't just about presence. It's about being present, not as a symbol, but as a sister, a mother, and a human being. The crowd rose in immediate applause, and social media commentators hailed her return as a triumph of resilience. So what really happened to Kate Middleton? Behind the headlines of canceled engagements and hushed palace corridors lies a woman in transformation, a duchess refusing to be defined by ancient scripts, choosing instead to write her own lines. Her journey through mental health struggles, palace power plays, and personal reinvention reveals a shift in royal narrative, from unyielding tradition to vulnerable authenticity. You needed to hear this, because Kate's story isn't just about one life. It's a mirror for anyone balancing duty and self-care, tradition and change. And as you watch her next move on the world stage, remember, the biggest revelations often come not from scandals, but from the courage to be real. By the time autumn's chill swept through the palace gardens, Kate Middleton had transformed from the dutiful Duchess of Cambridge into a figure who unsettled old-guard courtiers and thrilled reform-minded observers. Her gala reappearance, fresh-faced, articulate, wearing that bold cerise coat, sent a clear message. She was back, but on her terms. Behind the velvet ropes, palace aides were scrambling. Teams that once choreographed her every move suddenly found themselves taking notes from Kate's newly expanded inner circle. Mental health experts, community organizers, and her own trusted friends, rather than the traditional mix of protocol officers and royal press secretaries. Insiders say the Duchess spent the summer months in a discreet manner on the outskirts of Windsor, hosting closed-door strategy sessions that felt more like startup brainstorms than court briefings. Instead of dry PowerPoint slides, Kate invited focus groups of teachers, social workers, and psychologists to role-play scenarios she might face. Handling hostile media questioning, balancing solo parenting duties with public engagements, and navigating the delicate art of speaking truth to tradition. Observers who managed to slip past security for those clandestine workshops described a room alive with energy. Charts of social impact metrics covering the walls, post-it clusters of project ideas, and Kate herself pacing among participants, jotting down notes with laser focus. One proposal emerged that night and has since become pivotal: the creation of regional family hubs inside disused parish halls across the UK. Each hub would offer free counseling, parenting classes, and drop-in coffee sessions, all under the Duchess's patronage and guided by local charities. When the pilot launched discreetly in Cornwall last month, demand far outstripped capacity. Waiting lists formed before press teams could even issue photo calls. Local newspapers ran stories headline, "Duchess's drop-in saves the day," capturing images of mothers hugging Kate as she served tea from an enamel kettle. Social media lit up with videos of her sitting on community center folding chairs, listening, really listening, to their struggles. The organic buzz forced Buckingham Palace to officially endorse the hubs, codifying what had begun as an off-the-record idea. Meanwhile, the dynamic between Kate and Prince William underwent its own evolution. Courtiers who once whispered about marital strain now speak of an unprecedented partnership. Gone are the days when William led on foreign tours while Kate performed the supporting role of epaulette benchwarmer. Recent engagements show them co-headlining youth mental health summits, trading insights from their respective initiatives as equals rather than heir and consort. At a recent Heads Together charity panel, William praised Kate's vulnerability in Belfast, crediting her honesty for opening the door to frank conversations nationwide. Kate, in turn, lauded William's steadfast presence, noting that their partnership extends beyond marriage into a shared mission to modernize the monarchy from within, she said. That phrase, "modernize from within," has become a quiet mantra echoing through palace corridors. Junior staffers admitted that Kate's approach has made their own roles feel more meaningful. A palace communications officer revealed that, under Kate's revised guidelines, social media posts must now include at least one data stat about mental health outreach or women's education for every staged photograph. Press officers tasked with drafting her speeches now work alongside nonprofit CEOs to ensure authenticity, replacing the old template of generic royal platitudes with concrete calls to action. Text MIND to 70707 for support, or visit your local family hub by registering at familyhubs.uk. Yet this surge of authenticity hasn't come without blowback. Traditionalists within the institution worry that Kate's hands-on activism chips away at the mystique that distinguishes royals from ordinary politicians. One senior aide, speaking on condition of anonymity, confessed, "There's fear she's rewriting centuries of royal detachment. If the public starts seeing her too much as one of us, what then becomes the point of royalty?" Though such comments are whispered behind closed doors, the unease is palpable. Kate's evolving role threatens to upend the carefully calibrated distance that has kept the monarchy relevant and revered for generations. The most dramatic flashpoint occurred in mid-September when Kate appeared unannounced at a daytime workshop on postpartum depression, joining a circle of new mothers and health visitors in a community church hall. No photographers were notified. No advance press release teased her presence. Participants thought they were attending a local health authority session until Kate entered, carrying boxes of herbal teas she'd sourced from a small London apothecary. Witnesses say the room fell silent. She spent 2 hours listening and sharing her own anxieties from the early days after Prince George's birth, how she'd felt isolated in a royal nursery, the relentless pressure to bounce back on brand. By the end, women were weeping in relief, and Kate emerged holding handmade cards signed, "We are in this together." The footage, obtained by a local BBC reporter, went viral overnight, racking up tens of millions of views and forcing the palace to deviate from its normal media embargo protocols. It was that raw, guerrilla-style outreach that prompted senior palace figures to convene crisis meetings. They debated curbing Kate's grassroots spontaneity in favor of reinstating rigid press workflows. But Kate, armed with data, surveys showing improved mental health outcomes in regions served by her hubs, stood firm. Sources describe a moment when she looked across the conference table and said, "I will not return to the sidelines." The people we serve need someone who shows up in their living rooms, not in polished palace ballrooms. Reports say the room grew quiet. Then applause broke out among the younger advisors. An aide later texted colleagues, "She just reminded us who we work for." She wins. Buoyed by that victory, Kate has charted her calendar for the coming months with unprecedented focus on marginalized communities. She's set to visit Scotland's Highland villages hit by rural depopulation, where she'll join mobile mental health vans offering therapy to isolated seniors. She'll travel to Manchester to launch a pilot program for dads grappling with postnatal anxiety, a cause rarely acknowledged by public figures. And she'll headline a Women in Leadership Summit in Birmingham, amplifying stories of grassroots organizers who've reshaped their neighborhoods. Each appearance reinforces a stark contrast with the Duchess we once knew. The carefully posed figure in gala gowns has given way to a hands-in-flower reality TV contrast she welcomes, because real people need real people, not red carpets. Of course, with every new initiative comes a new wave of speculation. Tabloids have speculated on whether Kate's activism signals an eventual bid for a formal political platform. Some forget that a monarchy by definition remains above party politics. Others question if her genuine affinity for public-facing work signals a planned abdication of her royal duties in favor of NGO leadership. Tory commentators have chimed in, warning against royals pandering to populist causes. Labour voices have applauded her shift towards social justice. The debate has become so polarized that palace insiders privately worry about the sustainability of Kate's unprecedented departure from tradition. So what really happened to Kate Middleton? Beneath the rumors of health scares, palace feuds, and wrist injuries lies the story of a woman seizing agency, refusing to be a static ornament in the monarchy's grand edifice and instead shaping it from the inside out. Her cancelled gala was not a sign of weakness, but a strategic retreat that allowed her to rethink her role. Her Belfast speech cracked the dam of royal reserve, making it clear she would speak truth to power, even if that power was the institution she married into. And her grassroots family hubs and surprise charity drop-ins demonstrate that authenticity, even in an age of media skepticism, remains the currency that resonates most deeply as you consider Kate's unfolding narrative. Remember this. The greatest revolutions rarely blast through with spectacle. They happen quietly, in parish halls and church basements, in private strategy retreats and small group gatherings. They require courage to stretch beyond prescribed roles and defy expectations. Kate's journey, from poised duchess to authentic advocate, reflects a broader cultural shift, an insatiable hunger for leaders who show both competence and vulnerability, who balance service with self-care, and who ground tradition in lived experience. You need to hear this, not just as a royal headline, but as a story of modern leadership that challenges us all to ask, how can I show up more fully in my own life? Even as frost dusts the palace turrets and the peerage settle into fireside season, Kate Middleton's quiet revolution shows no sign of hibernation. In recent weeks, she has unveiled the final pillar of her Mindful Families platform, a national digital hotline staffed 24 hours a day by qualified counselors, peer supporters, and tutors trained to guide parents through sleepless nights, tantrum-filled mornings, or the isolating fog of postpartum distress. What makes this hotline unique is not just the royal seal on its promotional video. Kate herself appears in casual denim, making the invitation personal, but the user interface, designed with input from the very families she's served in community halls. Text prompts read less like stiff policy and more like friendly check-ins. Can I help you find someone who understands what you're going through right now? It's a small phrase, but one that captures the Duchess's radical insistence on emotional veracity within an institution built on pageantry. Behind the scenes, palace officials have quietly restructured their communications teams to support this digital rollout. Press secretaries now collaborate directly with app designers and clinical psychologists, ensuring every notification, email reminder, and chatbot script passes a triple filter: accuracy, accessibility, and empathy. The result is a user experience that resembles a trusted friend's text rather than a bureaucratic press release. Early analytics indicate tens of thousands of downloads within days of launch, and anecdotal social media posts confirm that families in Cornwall, Cumbria, and Cardiff have found solace in the service late at night or during school holidays. For the first time, the palace's digital footprint feels genuinely human, an echo of Kate's own transformation from ceremonial figurehead to hands-on advocate. But the real flashpoint emerged when government ministers and opposition MPs weighed in. In a parliamentary hearing on social care funding, a representative of the Department for Education praised the Duchess's groundbreaking collaboration, citing preliminary improvements in mental health metrics among users aged 25 to 45. Conservative backbenchers, long wary of royal encroachment on civic affairs, found themselves applauding bipartisan support for enhanced community services. Labor shadow ministers credited Kate's initiative with highlighting chronic gaps in public provision, gaps they pledged to address in upcoming budgets. Suddenly, topics that once felt safely within Westminster's purview were being reframed. Social welfare no longer a party political football, but a shared national concern spurred by a duchess who refused to linger in the background. This political ripple has led to further palace recalibrations. Traditionally stovepiped pathways of royal approval now intersect with Downing Street's policy teams, local councillors, and nonprofit coalitions. A new working group convened last month in Marlborough House, co-chaired by Kate's senior aide and the Secretary of State for Health, mapping how mindful families can dovetail with NHS expansion. Proposals include on-site counselors at maternity wards, integrated data sharing to track early warning signs, and subsidies for private catchment areas lacking public mental health resources. That a project birthed from a duchess's cancelled gala has now ascended to cabinet discussions reveals how far Kate has shifted the monarchy's gravity toward tangible impact. Meanwhile, public ceremonies take on fresh meaning. At the annual Remembrance Day service, Kate wore a discreet poppy-emblazoned lapel and left behind the customary mask of stoicism. Instead, she lingered after wreath-laying to embrace veterans' families, offering thanks in hushed tones and wrapping scarlet scarves around elderly shoulders. Reporters noted the lingering capacity for her presence to disarm formality. The Duchess's embrace was no mere photo op, but an authentic expression of solidarity with those who have faced trauma. William, standing just a step behind, gripped her hand in quiet support, an unspoken acknowledgement that she now sets the emotional tone for public rituals once reserved for stiff protocol. Perhaps the most telling sign of this new chapter lies in Buckingham Palace's upcoming annual report, which for the first time will include a section on social impact. Under that heading, Mindful Families is detailed alongside William's wildlife conservation work and Prince Harry's veteran support charities, underscoring that royal duties now equate to measurable community outcomes. An infographic illustrates hotline uptake, family hub attendance rates, and regional mental health improvements, data points that no predecessor would dare publish. The palace's transparency feels revolutionary, and at its core stands Kate's insistence that excellence is defined by real-world change, not silent symbolism. That, of course, any acceleration of royal modernization invites scrutiny. Critics question whether a working duchess, fully engaged in policy dialogues and grassroots interventions, risks eclipsing the reigning monarch's traditional invisibility. Some cultural commentators warn of diluting the mystique that underpins royal fascination. If a Princess of Wales begins to resemble a social entrepreneur more than an aristocratic exemplar, what remains uniquely royal? Kate's allies counter that the monarchy's survival depends on relevance, that an institution predicated on stasis will not outlast the digital age. Her voice, they argue, offers a lodestar for shared empathy, bridging class divides and reminding a fracturing society of common bonds. In that debate, Kate's actions speak louder than any static position paper. She didn't wait for permission to redefine her role. She simply led as winter deepens and snow dusts the Scottish Highlands. Kate is already charting her next move. A joint tour with mental health ambassadors through northern towns where isolation rates eclipse urban centers. She's slated to visit a ferry-bound community in the Orkney Islands, where residents navigate 9 months of darkness each year, conditions ripe for seasonal affective disorder. Partnering with local health boards, she will host group therapy hikes under lantern-lit trails and record a series of podcast episodes sharing personal coping tactics. For a royal institution often immobilized by tradition, such adaptability feels breathtaking. Kate's blueprint for action combines high-level policymaking with grassroots empathy, proving that a single individual, armed with authenticity and conviction, can shape a national conversation. And so, when you next see Kate Middleton, whether in a headline about her digital hotline or glimpsed on a community center DVD cover, you will witness more than a royal figure. You will see a modern leader who turned canceled engagements into opportunities, who transformed whispered palace disagreements into public dialogue, and who leveraged her distinctive platform to address society's hidden wounds. The Catherine we once knew as an elegant accessory to royal ritual has evolved into Catherine the Changemaker, a duchess committed to breaking the silence around mental health, challenging archaic hierarchies, and building bridges from palace halls to parish basements. What really happened to Kate Middleton is that she reclaimed agency over her own narrative, defied expectations of passivity, and rewrote the unwritten clauses of royal duty. In doing so, she has offered a blueprint for anyone feeling hemmed in by protocol, whether familial, professional, or cultural, to speak their truth and craft their own sphere of influence. This isn't the end of her journey. It's simply the breakthrough moment when tradition and transformation collide. You needed to hear this not as the final chapter of a scandal, but as the opening act in a new era of leadership, one fueled by vulnerability, empathy, and the courage to step off script.